Great evening, everyone. Great evening, and welcome back to Releasing My Secret, the podcast. I am certified trauma recovery coach, Teresa, and I am back again on another marvelous Wednesday night with another great guest, Coach CeCe. And we are going to be talking, right? We know that this podcast is built around amplifying your voice one story at a time. So I'm superly excited to have this conversation. She is my sister from another mother. And I'm very, very, very honored and very excited to have her on. Y'all know I say this every single week. I think we're about on week 10. So I always be like, oh, y'all know I could get chatty. So we just going to jump right in, indulge right in. So thank you so much, Coach CeCe, for coming in. If you could introduce yourself to everyone, and then we'll just flow from there.
Absolutely. So I just want to tell you that you just look marvelous, darling. Marvelous. Yeah. But yes, I am Coach CeCe. So my government name is Cherrea Wiliams. And yes, I am the Coach CeCe. And I am the proud founder and CEO of Life as You. And life is an acronym that stands for Living in Fervent Excellence. Yes, living in fervent excellence. And that's what I'm here. That's what I'm called to do. And I'm so excited to be on this podcast and looking at the beautiful Teresa as we begin, as we embark on this new journey here, as we discuss with you all what it is that God has for us to say and whatever comes to our hearts. So thank you so much for having me on your platform, ma'am.
Thank you again. And for the compliments. You're going to make me blush, right? I can't be... Don't make me cry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you so much for coming on. You know, we come on and we talk, and a lot of times people see our success. They see us posting all the time. They see our pictures, because we can work a photo shoot, right? But they don't understand that there's always a story that kind of drove us through that. And I always talk about the process of our success, or the process of us leading into our success, right? Because again, we know success can be defined as so many different things. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey as leading up to Coach CeCe, I should say.
You know what? I just got a feeling in my heart to just hit it hard. And, part of my journey is to become authentic and to talk about the hard things. So I'm just going to go right into it. I didn't know what led me to become Coach CeCe all my life, but absolutely the devastation and the trauma that ensued because I was molested when I was 6, 7, 8. I'm still trying to remember those years by my uncle, and just kind of going back into that space. And so when you talk about the trauma that has happened, or when I talk about the trauma that has happened when I was a little girl, I find myself reverting back to that little girl, and that's okay, right? Because I've learned that through becoming, a master's degree counselor, right? But it's tough. It's hard when you're actually in the driving seat, right? And so I recall in 2019, just feeling this eerie way of why I was just so heartbroken over a situation. So I was involved with a man, it was more platonic, but this man had all the resemblance of my molester. So I didn't know this at the time, right? And so it was revealed to me in the process. So he was strong, he was dark skinned, he was unassuming, he was somebody that I trusted, and something happened between us that I didn't see coming, right? And so all of a sudden, although I allowed that something to happen at that time, I didn't know the implications that it had on my spirit, my soul, or what God was trying to pull up and heal for me, right? And so I just recall feeling like this little girl, and I was just crying uncontrollably, and then it kind of deemed, and then it became a journey of forgiveness. And I knew that I still had work to do, although, of course, Coach CeCe is the one that talks about doing the work. I still had work to do, and that's where it all began. I had to go all the way back to yesteryears, and then those years led me to a life as a teenager, led me through a life as a young adult in my 20s and my 30s, and ultimately now my 40s. I know I don't look like it, but it's okay.
Girl, not at all. We don't.
But I'm so glad that happened, because I was able to once again open up Pandora's box to get more healing that I needed through forgiveness. And so that very man who had no idea that he was playing an intricate role in what was happening, I had him stand in the gap of all the men that have basically, caused trauma in my life, did me dirty or whatever you want to say. And I spoke to them. Some have passed, some have not, in an exercise of forgiveness. Like he was the face of all of them,
Wow.
and it was a powerful, powerful exercise that God asked me to do with myself. And so that has certainly had a bearing on who Coach CeCe is today, just a little bit more of an experience of life to make me more than able to be the life coach that I am today.
Wow, you said so much. And it took me back to thinking about, I always say that you talk about wound care, right? And so when you have a wound, the first thing that happens is you clean it out. If you get injured and you don't clean it, it becomes infected and it could spill over. And so it's just amazing how you were saying, like, you grant it to somebody, they look like your abuser, right? And so it's just like, that's true. You have to dig deep to get to the root cause of everything. I think my process started with forgiveness. I think with myself, right? And then forgiving the people who offended me. Was there ever a time in your process? I know for me, I think I was delusional. Like, I always say that a lot of times we don't forgive, we suppress because it's easier to suppress than to forgive. And to know the difference is that you'll notice the red flags in your emotions because things will start to spill over. So was there ever a time in your process that you wanted to just quit? Like, I'm not going through this anymore. I'm just not going, I'm gonna just take it for how it is. Because it's easier to do that, right? I think everybody says like, most people don't heal because they don't want to go through the process. So how was your process? Like, did you want to quit? Did you want to, or was you just like, no, I'm just going to go through this?
Absolutely, I wanted to quit, and I think I've quit many times leading up to today, right? And it's all different, and I think when you're ready, right? It's kind of like when you're talking to your drug addict or alcoholic, and that rock bottom, right? But we all experience rock bottoms because we're all addicted to something. We may be addicted to social media. We may be addicted to people or attention. We may be addicted to pain.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, unwantingly, we have become addicted to traumas and pains. And so we need to hit rock bottom. So throughout the journey, you want to quit, and you kind of do. You don't even know you're quitting. Right. And so you take a little bit, and then you pull back, and you take a little bit. Thus, I believe is some of the reason for revisiting or making that statement. I thought I did the work. Have you ever been there where you like, I did this, I extensively, I know it's all gutted out. It is clean. I've done cried all my lashes off 14 times, just 2 weeks straight. I've been on the floor laying prostrate before the Lord. I done got deliverance, and I went to a healing with Taylor Reese, and they delivered me from the throes of the enemy, right? I am good. And then you are good, and you feel good, and maybe years go by, and then bam, something happened, and you just like, wait a minute, wait, what? And that has happened to me, and it used to make me angry, right? Because like, like, what am I supposed to do? Right?
Yeah.
You get angry, like, what? But I was about to like quote the Bible wrong. You ever have those scriptures that they're not scriptures?
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Right. And I think
like, to thine own self be true. People say that. They be like, and the scripture says.
Right. You're like, for real? Amen. No. But I think another one is God won't give you more than you can bear.
It's paraphrased in the scripture. It's different. Right. Yeah.
So I was about to say that, but what he does is he can bear it all, right? Because he said that our burdens, they're heavy, but his yoke is light, right? And so all through all things that he can do. And so that in essence, that's what he's saying. But if we're not ready, if we're not, going, he knows us. If we're not going to pull on him or call on him as we should, then that burden will be lifted, because, he knows. He already knows, oh, you gonna need me. And so we think we did all the work, but nah, you ain't quite ready. And so
Yeah.
when I get to those moments and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I did the work, I just simply breathe because, who's high? And I say, okay, what else do I need to do? What have I missed? What am I now ready for that I wasn't ready for before? I don't get upset because I know that everything happens in divine order and timing, and it's all connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just simply say, okay, what else do I need to do? But I definitely get frustrated. I definitely get angry. I definitely shut down, and my shutting down, and I'm about to keep it real again, was through drinking, right? And so then I developed this drinking problem, right? Because I was, masking, I didn't know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was masking pain, and I was being altered and being somebody that I thought, that I felt comfortable with showing up. Maybe for me, I was able to give excuses for behaviors because I was drinking. Like, if I made a call or if I did a crazy dance or if I sent a drunk text, that's because I was drunk, but it wasn't until
Girl, you ain't supposed to have a phone when you're in that state of mind. I know, Jesus delivered you, but I just gotta remind you, you gotta put the phone away.
Take the battery out. But yeah, now, you know what? It's about acceptance. So I still can send texts like that. I still can do the crazy dance, and I still can be everything that I was when I was under the influence, and I'm okay with it. And so that power is gone now,
Mm-hmm.
from the alcohol, because it's just me. The good, the bad, and the ugly is about acceptance. I don't always get it right, and that's okay. Right. And so absolutely. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and I don't know who it was, and they were proud that they suppress things. They was like, how I deal with stuff, I just suppress it. I'm like, well, yeah, that is a coping mechanism, and sometimes our brains, survival, we have to do that so that we can survive some traumas. But yeah, you need complete healing. You need to get it up. You need to, I think I said it today. I said we need to regurgitate and then flush it down the toilet. I think that's what
Listen, you done said a couple of things, right? So first, I always say the same thing that you say about God never puts, you'd be like, God never puts, because people, that's the first thing they say when we going through something. You be like, girl, you spilled out your whole heart, tears, lashes off, mascara down here. And the first thing they want to say is, God never puts more on you than you could bear. And I was like, well, how much do he think I could bear? Because I can't bear this. What I've learned is that it shows me my imperfections and how much I still need to rely on him, as you stated, like, because it's kind of like when you're going through that cycle. So I get it, right? Because here I go. You go through something and God brings you through. And then the same exact, I was dealing with somebody years ago. Great situation for years. I wasted time. I don't really like to say wasted time. I like to say lesson learned, right? And then you wind back up bumping into somebody else, and it's a similar situation. And you're like, God, I just came out of this. Like I cried, I did whatever, or just like other stuff. And it's just like, okay, I got to go through this again. What I've learned too is that you come through the process. Yes, you get delivered, but then you still have a test that you got to come through. But sometimes we don't pass the test. Sometimes we barely pass the test. Sometimes we don't even realize that it is a test that's going on. And then we got to go through it all over again because we didn't pass the test, right? And it's just and we don't get forewarned about when it is the test. And then sometimes it's just preparation to show us how much we still need the Lord, because a lot of times we go through something, we come through it, and we feel like we've arrived. Right. And so the praying, the fasting, the reading of the word, all the stuff we were doing to get out of our mess, we stopped doing because we've arrived. Right. And it's so funny. My pastor just preached yesterday. You probably see me yesterday. You probably see me posting hashtags talking about got milk, because he was talking about how sometimes you have to go back from we're eating meat, but in certain areas of our lives, we have to go back and get the nourishment from the milk, so that we could build up in those areas in our lives to the meat, because if not, we go back to vices and we go back to things that we're familiar with. And so that's so true, because we get to the point to where we're like, oh, been there, done that, came through that, I done cried. And Lord, I don't want to talk about regurgitating and purging, because I used to tell the Lord, listen, Lord.
Listen, Lord.
Because me and the Lord make bets, like not bets. I mean, not say bets. Me and the Lord make deals. Well, I think he laughs at me, but we make deals. And I'll be like, Lord, listen, go through all that. I don't need to throw up. I don't need to be on the altar. I don't need nobody thinking I got a demon in me. You don't need to let me throw up in front of everybody else and, whatever. And because I used to say that, like, you'd be looking at people like, Jesus. And,
right. I get it.
What I've learned is it has to come up and come out. And that's why I always talk about releasing my secret, right? Because we bury it. But it no matter what it is, it'll always, whatever you bury, whatever is buried always brings up and out. Always, right? So that's why you're supposed to bury his word in your heart. Why? So then it'll spring up and spring out when you need it. And we don't, that's the bad part about suppression. When you bury all those bad things, they just stay and then they spring up and they spring out. And you see the manifestation of the seeds that you buried and you suppressed.
Absolutely.
So, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. But I get it. A lot of people, they like to suppress. And it's kind of like, why? Like, don't you want to be free? We're called to freedom, right? Like, we're called to be free.
But freedom is painful sometimes.
You could say that again.
Right.
You could say that again, right? Because it's just like, anyway, yeah. So that was like,
when you were talking, I just got something, and this would be the so don't take this out of context, people, but where I would approve of a bulimic spirit. It is to force yourself to throw up.
She said spirit.
Yeah. Not in the natural people. We're not doing that. Then you have to come and talk to a counselor or something. But no, just if we forcibly make ourselves, throw up, because like you said, it's just kind of like you're in the microwave, right? And your bag of popcorn or no, here's the imagery. I love this. I see it all in my brain. You remember the popcorn with the tin pan and that you put on the stove, the Jiffy.
I buy those sometimes, childhood memories.
Right, and then you be shaking and stuff, and then the aluminum foil and it pops. Right, so that's what's going to happen. Is inevitable, right? And so instead of that, say, hey, I am ready, and force some things, those bad things, those hurtful things, force them to come up. So that there's a sense of control there. Because it's gonna come up. So of all, in a real way, we're not in control. Right. I mean, I know a lot of us think we are, and then we've developed the spirit of control, and because of some things that may have happened to us in our past, like we want to think that we're in control. Well, if I get you first and you can't get me, or these the people that I'm going to date because I'm in control, or I'm going to just give it away, and they ain't got to take it. Whatever may have come up because of whatever craziness we may have been thinking in our past. Now it's just a matter of you could make it, you could say, hey, I am ready, for this, and here I stand, and I want to face this right now. And so you have a sense of control in that space, right? Because if not, it's going to come up, and you ain't in control in that aspect either. So take charge, right? Take charge of your life. I guess charge is more of the word as opposed to control, but taking charge of your life, and then seek the healing and get the healing that you so deserve. And so that's the only reason that I approve this spiritual.
Bulimic. Yeah, we just spiritual.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So you said something, and I was having a conversation the other day, and somebody said to me, like, how do you know, right? How do you know? Okay, so years ago, I used to struggle when I was younger, and I used to be in a prayer line, or people used to pray for me, but like, God just wants a yes. And I'm like, yes. You ain't giving me a yes. How you just said it.
Right.
So somebody might be saying, well, Coach CeCe, listen, I've tried to surrender. I've tried to relinquish control. Like, I don't know how. And I don't know, because some people say that. They're like, I've tried. I've tried to surrender. And so can you describe what that looks like? Because I think a lot of people struggle in that, right? We hear, especially in Christendom, we hear that a lot of times, surrender, 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 surrender. And it's kind of like a lot of people don't know how. People, it's easy to say it, right? Some people say easier said than done. And I'm pretty sure you went through this because I think we all have at some point in time. So can you describe that for the person who's struggling to say, I thought I surrendered, but I really don't know how?
Right. That's a very good question. And it's so like has all these layers to it. And I could probably answer it a couple of ways, but recently I've been saying, don't worry about the how, right? Because God takes care of the how. Like, I'm gonna be a millionaire next year and I don't know how, and I don't really care, but I will, right? And so it starts right there with a sincere belief and a manifestation. And so I said so many times in my life, and maybe you have, and maybe so many others have, the phrase of let go and let God. And it was just kind of cliche, right? You just kind of like your yes, right? And it was just kind of like words thrown in the atmosphere with no power. But when you really let go and let God, like, you could feel it. And so it's just like, you can feel that your vibrational pull is in alignment. And what it looks like is I don't know. That's what it looks like when you completely, I don't know.
So I'm about to play the client. And you're going to be Coach CeCe. I'm about to play the client. Right?
Okay.
But Coach CeCe, they hurt me so bad. How can I just forget about that?
Well, it's not important for you. It's not necessary for you to forget, because you have a mind that is very amazing and is going to remember like so many things that we don't. But it's to accept it, to find out what it means for you, and to move on from it, right? And so we can't control what other people do, right? And so I like the 4 agreements. And one of those agreements is, don't take it personal. Don't that hurt? Don't take it personal. Don't, because what people do and what people say is who they are. But you only have the power to control or monitor what you say and what it is that you do. So if they do something to you, that's them. You have the choice to allow it to affect you or not to.
I heard Pastor Kimberly Jones say, feel the feeling, choose the behavior, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we have a choice, and you get to choose how you want to progress in life based off of what's happened to you in your past, or based off of just how you want to move forward. I think a lot of people get stuck in that place. They're so worried about other people, and that other person is living their life. Now, let me tell y'all, and I'm going to say this right on the live stream. The person who sexually assaulted me is friends with a lot of people I'm friends with on Facebook, even though they know what happened to me. I don't give them that person the power by saying their name when I do talk about my assault, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not mad at the people who are still friends with that person. Why? Because that's not, I have to live life for Santa Teresa, and like you said, we have to do it for us. How much do you love yourself? I think it's really all about self-love. How much do you value yourself? They always say people aren't going to treat you how you treat yourself. Absolutely. And I think that that's true, right? Because if you don't embrace yourself or love yourself enough to value yourself, I think that that's when you fall into those issues. And so you were right, how are you going to respond? And I think that's how, and I was like, I'm glad she said 4 points. She was only giving 1, because I was like, listen, she a coach, y'all, and she can't be giving y'all all her all 4 or 5, 6 of her tips and acronyms. That's what the website's for. Can't be doing all.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I commend you for, taking your power back, and I commend you for making that decision. A lot of people don't understand that, right? And so, like, I have a friend that is in a similar situation. It was an abusive situation, and just down that abuser's friends with her friends, and now she's like, "Well, I ain't gonna be friends with them," right? And that's just draining of self. That's not living in fervent excellence. I'll tell you that. That's not living a life of passion for the good, right? But that also, like, this would be my question to somebody like that. When all your friends stop being a friend, you're gonna be better? Is everything gonna go away? Because if so, I would be like, yes, do it. But it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not the issue. And so whatever the issue is, that's where the healing needs to be. So you can't control, once again, who is being with who's saying what, and who are friends with whom. You only have the power to say, okay, I need to work on me. I need to do what's good for me. I don't have to talk to them. They know what they did. I'm going to forgive them. And you could just leave it right there, because forgiveness, we all know, is for the person, not for the abuser or the misuser, but for the actual person that is in the driving seat. So.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about forgiveness, right? Because that was my pivotal mark. And I absolutely love talking about forgiveness. Actually, it was so funny. I think that was one of them times I had to negotiate with the Lord, right? Because
right, negotiate. You've been making deals, negotiating.
I think it was a negotiation. Listen, my pastor preached a sermon on forgiveness. I think I say this all the time, but it was really my pivotal moment. He preached a sermon about forgiveness. And that's when I realized I didn't forgive, I suppressed. And so I got home and I sent, Facebook at the time, was years ago. And so I Facebooked the person who sexually assaulted me. I Facebooked my ex-husband. I'm like, I forgive you. And I was like, for da-da-da-da-da. I spelled it all out. I got blocked by my ex-husband.
Well.
But the person who sexually assaulted me actually said rape, question mark, question mark, question mark. And I said, it wasn't for you, it was for me. But afterwards, I felt sick as a dog because I really released it. Like, I let go of every emotion that was attached to that assault. And so I say that because people think it's not possible, but it is. It is possible. It is possible to not have those red flags, those reoccurring, to walk in total healing. Mm-hmm. And so I say that because I had to say, like, because of that response, which happens a lot of times when you are working through forgiveness, a lot of times the people they're like, what? Like, I moved on with my life. Like, what? So I want to talk about that, right? Because some people like, forgive. I ain't do nothing they did. You get what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Everybody's like, what? So my negotiation, let me just backtrack real quick. Because y'all like, well, how does she negotiate with the Lord? Because y'all, I felt sick as a dog. I called my pastor. I'm like, Pastor, I feel like I'm about to throw up. I can't even walk. And he was like, you're probably going to purge. I hung up with him and said, Jesus, I do not need to purge. Please don't let me throw up today. That was my negotiations with the Lord, y'all. Now, let me just fast forward. I have purged since. Awesome experience, I must say. And I don't want to do it all the time, Lord.
Right. There you go, making deals and bargaining. That's okay. He already know you. He know you. But
that's just the type of God we serve. Like, he knows us better than we know ourselves. So he knows my heart. So people always say to me, you always try to make deals with the Lord. I'd be like, Lord, I don't want to do nothing till I'm 40. Let me just live till I'm 40. And everything started going. I'm like, whoa, wait, God, wait. Give it till I'm 41. Let me finish college. And he's like, nope. He don't agree to all the time, y'all. I just want to let y'all know. Anyway. So back to forgiveness. Right. And so I want to talk about that because you started off when you was telling your story and you was talking about forgiveness. And I think a lot of people struggle in that area because why should I forgive? I got some things I probably need to put on the altar too. Let me just say that right now, y'all, because I ain't perfect because, people. But yeah, let's talk about it because I think that that's very vital. I think a lot of people struggle in that area, especially people who have gone through assault, people who have gone through trauma that's attached to someone else, right? And so let's talk about it a little bit
Absolutely.
in regards to forgiveness. How was your experience when you were coming through? I know you were talking about your process and you were talking about forgiveness. So can we talk about that just a little bit? Because I think it's key. I think, everybody's experience is different. Let me say that.
Absolutely. So just the piggyback off of one thing you said that I'm not perfect. And so when you reach a spiritual maturity at a level, you really, really understand that. And when you do, it's a little easier to forgive, right? One, when you know that it's not letting that person off the hook, it has nothing to do with that. And it's about you, breaking the chains, that bind you. Who wouldn't want to break the chains that bind them? So when you understand that, you're like, oh, let me break that, right? But also because knowing that, you're not perfect. So I'm not perfect. Like it's so many things in my life that, someone could not want to forgive me for, right? And that's their prerogative. But I would suggest to them
You can
that they
say
do
that.
for themselves, right? Because we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and that there's no one sin greater than the other. We as humans do this a degree measurement. I get it, right? Well, that's worse than that. Oh, no, that's worse than that, right? But God looks down and say, "Yeah, it's just sin," right? And so when you get a spiritual maturity, it's not to minimize anyone's trauma. I'm not saying that at all, but you didn't put yourself in the category of pretty much most people, right? And it's so many things that you would like to have forgiveness for, but hey, again, it's not. If I did something to somebody and it was held to them in captivity, I want them to seek forgiveness. I don't want them to be held in captivity because of anything that I did. Let alone they should want that, right? So it's not. I think a lot of people struggle with um letting off the hook, letting them slide or accepting them and keep doing the same thing over and over. No, that's insanity. You keep doing the same thing, it's expecting different results. When you forgive, it's not to say, okay, well, come back in and do it again. All is forgotten. Like we talked about this a little bit earlier. Your mind is the machine that is barely forgets. So that's crazy. And that's one of those things that get to me where you say you forgive and then you bringing it up every week, every other month. Well, you did that, and what you did, isn't that captivity? You know what I mean? Like when you gotta,
And
that's
that ain't forgiveness.
it's not right. So it's just kind of like kind of like you was messed up, you was thrown off, you did it, it happens, all right, kind of thing. Where you understand how God forgives us and how yesterday is gone. He doesn't remember. So why should we? Right? I once heard, and I was like, well, yeah, maybe I haven't done any scientific research on animals, but it's like humans are the only creatures, if you will, that remembers and hold and blame and shame and not and this unforgiveness from things that happened last week and 10, 15, 25 years ago. A dog will make a mistake, he'll jump up on the couch, I'm sorry, because I don't know why the chicken is on the couch, but he'll he'll jump up on the counter in the kitchen, right? But chicken could be on the couch.
Yeah.
My chicken was on the couch the other day, but and if it's a little dog, he got to jump, right? But like, just say it's a countertop, and then you got a big dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can get that chicken, and then you like scold him, and then why you do that, Rufus? And then Rufus is like, oh my god, and he clearly looks sad. And then 5 minutes later, Rufus is running around playing. He don't remember that, right? Yeah. That's how God is. I don't remember that, and there's consequences, repercussions to everything that you do. However, he throws it into the sea of forgetfulness and forgiveness. And so just imagine how much at peace he is. He's chilling, and you should be too. And so that's what forgiveness is about letting go and releasing that other person from having a bondage or a connection, to allowing that pain or whatever that was caused between you two to affect you any longer. And that's what forgiveness is about. So I'm all for it. What do you say?
I always say, you hear that feedback? Let me tell y'all about this. Let me take a side note real quick. I hear feedback on the thing because ever since we started talking about forgiveness, and then my son decided he wanted to wash clothes. So you hear the washing machine. So excuse me if you hear all of that in the background, y'all. This is real life podcast. We don't have a studio yet. We'll get one soon.
Absolutely.
But I always say forgiveness is releasing the emotion that's attached to the offense, right? Mm-hmm. I say that because that's what we carry, and a lot of times what happens is that emotion that's attached to the offense, if something happens again, then you're like, but you did, and I remember when you did that before. And like you said, it's a form of bondage because you're remembering constantly, what that person did. You're holding on to it. They done forgot, they moved on with their life, and you still walking around. And also you hold another person responsible for what that person did. That person offended you, and they have nothing to do with each other. And so you walk around carrying that heavy load that you don't have to. You could just release it. And in regards to forgiveness, a big part of it is self-forgiveness, right? And I know we didn't really talk about that, but self-forgiveness, because a lot of times people go, if I didn't go here, if I didn't do this, if I didn't do that, if I could have, we act as if we have, like, yes, we have control over our lives, but sometimes certain things we can't control. And so you couldn't have changed what happened. And so you have to learn to release yourself from the guilt. The Bible says, there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit. So you don't have to walk around condemned. Like you said, the Lord is like, what are you talking about? What you say? Even our brain, when it's not something extremely severe, the brain just tucks it away. And like that memory break, we don't remember, right? Once you let something go, like when I held on to my assault, let me say this. Every time Christmas would come around, every time I would hear a song, every time I would smell something, it would always kick up and bring me back to the offense. And it would just be like an automatic thing, like I was on a timer. Like, why am I getting cranky? I love Christmas. And it'll be on a timer, like clockwork, right? When I let go and released it, when I forgave myself, sometimes I forget. And I only really remember now, I think, because I tell the story sometimes, right? My story has changed and I tell it from a different stance as opposed to before, right? But it's releasing, like you say, that bondage, because that bondage I have you remembering all the details, all the smells, all the foods, all the everything that was attached to it when you walk around with unforgiveness, no matter what level of unforgiveness it is, whether it's with yourself, what it is. And the beautiful part about it, and I'm not saying that people won't, how am I want to say this? That people won't receive, the Bible says that God does not mock. Whatever man sows, he shall also reap, right? So things may be done to you and you may forgive the person, but that's no longer your battle to fight. Set up a healthy boundary and live your life. Because the Bible tells us that God always says, stand still, see the salvation of the Lord. Be still, know that I am God. And so he fights our battles for us. And a lot of times we feel like we got to retaliate. Lord Jesus, I think I'm talking to myself, right? And so sometimes we feel like we have to do that, but you don't. Your job is to free yourself, forgive that person, release those emotions, release those things that are attached, right? I think that's like the biggest thing. So you are Coach CeCe.
Yes, I am.
She is Coach CeCe, y'all. And
I got a question. I got a question for you.
What?
She was like, this is my show.
I say you now. Wait, what we call Dr. Pitts? Tell him his mentee. Your mentees is on here.
Right. Acting crazy.
Jonathan.
It's definitely a good question, and you could have posed this question to me just as well. So when we talk about this forgiveness thing, right, and we talk about what people reap they shall sow, or just vengeance is mine, says the Lord, whatever, or just moving on. Not every time you should move on, right? And so I think wisdom is the key in that, because how many people, everybody be single. Nobody but like anybody, right? And so do you have anything more to add to that? Like, when is it a time to move on, and when is it a time to stay? And if you so choose to, what should you be looking for differently in that person? And
what I've learned is boundaries is always key. So let me say, relationship wise, because people make mistakes, especially in marriages. So I ain't saying your husband, your wife slip up and leave them. I ain't say that. Let me put that disclaimer out there.
Right.
Our recovery coach and Coach CeCe did not say that, right? We said boundaries and healthy boundaries. And what do I mean by that? I forgave you. I released that emotion. I'm not going to throw it up in your face because we tend to do that, right? But then that means that when trust is violated, you still have to rebuild trust. And so that means that if you have to be a little bit more transparent, if you have to be, and yeah, I said transparency, y'all, because some people have experienced infidelity. So when you go, well, I don't know why I can't lock my phone. Well, you need me to trust you all over again, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, it's really just setting up healthy boundaries that you both can agree upon, something that's reasonable. Let me say that, y'all, because sometimes you might be like, I want you home by 7. I don't want you calling, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be sensible. And so sometimes it's certain things that you have to be willing to fight through. Listen, you can't pick and choose your family. So if you get into a fight with one of your siblings, me and my sister, let me say this, I could just be transparent and talk about it because she's my sister. We bumped heads for years. And she'll attest, and she watching this today, she'll tell you, like, yeah, we did. Bumped heads for years. We did agree. We couldn't even agree to disagree. But the boundaries that we set up, because we used to both offend each other, and then you don't talk and then you lose time, right? But I know now, let me say that because our relationship has gotten better. I knew then as we were rebuilding, I could talk to you about this. I can't talk to you about this. I could go this far with this conversation, and I know when to end the conversation before it goes too far. Because I can't end that relationship. I was born into the family. You're always going to be my sister. But we could set up healthy boundaries as we build our relationship with each other. Now I could call her and say all kind of stuff. She think I'm crazy sometimes, but that's just what we built up to. So that's true. You can't just walk away from everything, because in certain situations you can't, but it's situations that you can. And so you have to determine, again, what is healthy for you? What is healthy for you to stay in the midst of? What is it going to benefit you for being in there? You got a relationship, you dating somebody and they keep cheating on you and you keep forgiving them, you gonna keep staying? Is it healthy for you? What's the outcome? Your husband's beating on you. Are you gonna keep staying and get beat on? Or are you gonna create a safety plan and make a way of escape so that you could be okay? So it's true. Certain things you can stay for, and there's certain things that it's okay to walk away from and say, I love me more. And you have to really either write that out. You have to make that determination. I don't know if you got anything to add to it, because I think she's preparing y'all for her podcast that's about to come out. I think that's what it is. So I'm gonna let her slide, because y'all know.
No,
I work today.
I love that. I love that answer. And I was just thinking, when the good outweighs the bad, but that could be when the bad outweighs the good, it's time to go, and vice versa. But that could be tricky, right? And I was going to talk about my marriage. I was with the man 15, 20 years. I don't know. I wasn't married, remember? Because all things are made new. So I don't know.
I think that applies.
I done forgot, but things that maybe some people would have walked out the day they learned some things, right? But
hey, child, yes.
I got married at 22, and so it was this, I guess I was doing this measurement, like, was the good outweighing the bad? But that could be tricky, because all on how you grew up and what you perceive as good and bad, right? Like if you grew up in an abusive home where you saw your dad beat your mom, then if it happens to you, you're not really counting that as on the negative side. You know what I mean? And so I guess, what people say, well, what happened, in your marriage? And to just put it in simple terms is that, I just outgrew. I just outgrew it. So I was getting better. And so those ideologies that I had of what was good and what was bad were changing. And I started to spiritually grow and I started to mature. And so what was acceptable at 22 became unacceptable at 30 and 35. And so all of a sudden the bad just started outweighing the good. And then I had to make a decision. And then life is all about decisions.
That is so true. I always say that, like, I used to not talk to, like, me and my mom stopped talking for a long time. She hurt my feelings, like hurt. She used the F-bomb. She hurt my feelings. My love language is, my love language, y'all, is affirmations and time. So those are my two strong suits in regards to my love language. And so words are big for me. And so she used the F-bomb. I ain't talked to my mom for years. We started talking again. But what God had to show me was she could only give me what she was given.
Yep.
And so that's the same thing in any relationships. And that's how I view relationships now, too. I love to know about how you grew up. What happened? Because I dated somebody who, and I think that kind of puts you, we was talking about forgiveness, it takes you to a whole other thing real quick. But you start seeing, okay, you grew up in a home where your bed was made, your dinner was always made, no matter what. Your mother worked, but she still made sure that you had everything that you needed. I grew up in a home where both my parents worked. My dad cooked sometimes when my mom had to work. My mom cooked when my dad had to work on Sundays and weekends. She just cooked. We had family dinner, and it was just kind of different format. So the expectations were different between the both of us. Because when I'm expecting for you, I'm tired. You need to go cook something, boil me a hot dog, maybe some noodles, something. But you like, so what, you work, you the woman, you supposed to be. The expectations are different. And so I get it when you say, I outgrew it. Because certain things you're like, well, I was used to this and it seemed like it was okay, but then I grew. And I understood it. I think you just come into who you are. Like I had to take some time and be like, look, listen, I'm gonna start dating myself because I need to know what I like, what I don't like. It shocked me one time. I went to a restaurant. I was on a date. I had the menu open. And I said, I want this, hold this, put this on it, da, da, da. It seems so minute, but when you're so used to, I don't know, babe, what you think? I don't know what you know what I mean? Like, it's just becoming into that mindset of independency and really understanding who you are, right, so that you can make those decisions for you based off of who you are and you understanding who you are, right? And understanding what you like, what you don't like, I suffered from that, being a teen mom. I had to grow up at 15 and raise somebody. And so by the time he got grown, I'm like, well, what? I'm so used to these kids. What do I like? What don't I like? I'm used to, my kids was like, I don't like, my son, girl, he was like, I don't like meatloaf. I don't like rice. I don't like potato. I'm looking at him like, what? So coming into yourself, when you do that, you learn so much about you. And I think that that's key in order for you to move forward, right? I think that that's like the key thing to do, to know yourself, to understand yourself and to know yourself, right? And so we've talked about so much. We've talked about so much from forgiveness. I know we touched upon, just knowing you. I think we're about the same age, and we make those decisions in our lives, and I think decisions is key. Whether you start off even on your journey of healing, you have to make a decision, right? You have to make a decision when it comes to salvation, a decision when it comes to totally surrendering, a decision when it comes to forgiveness. And so our lives is full of decisions. So when you say, I don't know how, you have to decide that now is the time for it to happen.
Right.
And so as we always say, I always say, like, the key thing for me is in this podcast, I never want anybody to hear everything And be like, all right, they talk about this stuff. Now what am I supposed to do? People say that like, now what am I supposed to do? I done listened to this whole podcast about the wind down. I done what? Because I still ain't forgiven. I ain't made that decision yet. I ain't made that.
Period.
Yes. Right? And so what I always love to do when I have everybody on here as God leads, I ask them to do a call to action. And a call to action, everyone, if this is your first time tuning in. Now, y'all know I go to church. I'm a church girl, born, raised. My mother was pregnant. She got saved. So, I was born, raised in church 7 days a week. I wasn't Kojic, but I was Pentecostal. So, I was in church all day long. Amen. One thing that you don't do in church is you don't go to church, you don't hear a sermon. Even if you preach before, you don't hear a sermon and you don't get an altar call. Because at that moment, something's been pricked in your heart where you have to make a decision about something. Again, another decision. And so on this show, we do the same thing where something was said, we talked about so much that we have call to action. And a call to action is not really specific. It's really just however God leads at that moment for our listeners, so that when you're in your place right now and you're listening and you're saying, you know what, this is good. I can really relate to this. And so we don't want to leave you with nothing. And so I'm going to ask CeCe to give her call to action on today.
Absolutely.
And
so about 2,000 years ago, there was this man named Paul, right? And he was doing his little journeys, and he was in Rome. I don't know if he was in Rome when he wrote this, but he did write some things to the Roman people. And one of the things that he wrote is for them to do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed with the renewing of their minds. And then he said, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will, right? And so I just want to leave with you all that in order to live in fervent excellence, fervent is a word that means passionate and with zeal, right? You have to continuously renew your mind. But then the question becomes, how, right? So the number one answer to that is a desire to want that to happen, right? You have to make a decision. You have to decide that the time is now. And then with that, be willing to open up and to receive what it is that you need. And so here with Life Is You, what I do as a coach is that I teach people how to truly be happy, because when I speak to people, men and women, their ideas of happiness always seems to be surface or external, right? He makes me happy. When I go here, it makes me happy, right? But what I've come to learn is that true happiness is more internal, like what's going on inside. And so it's not a surface thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's a deep rooted, the deep seated, and it's a subconscious that needs to be taken care of, first known, and then taken care of and healed from if necessary. And then you'll truly be able to come into one of my programs, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to manifest your true hopes, dreams, and desires, as I show you how you can effectively and continuously on a daily basis renew your mind. And so what I want to leave with you also is a little bit about boundaries. I saw this, I don't know if it's an acronym.
I love acronyms, y'all.
So it is an acronym. And so it's kind of like in a paragraph form, but it spells out boundaries, a boundary, and it says be aware of what is unacceptable and normalize saying no. Do what is best for you, and know that it is not your responsibility to sacrifice yourself for others. And that's how you create boundaries, and that's how you basically uphold boundaries. And so that's what I want to leave with you. The call to action is simply to, if you need help, raise your hand. Say, I need help. Let your yes be yes, and not Coach Teresa's yes when she was a wee tot and they was just like, say yes. She was like, yes. But let it be an authentic and true and powerful yes, because there's power in your words, and let your no mean no. Right. And so if you need some help with understanding what that means, I'm available for you. You can visit my website, which is www.lifeasu.org, lifeasu.org. You can shoot me a text. You can find me on Facebook, Cherrea Wiliams. That's CheRrea. I'm Coach CeCe, and you can shoot me a text or give me a call at 678-886-5767. That's it. That's all I have, ma'am.
Y'all, let me tell y'all, she done took my whole second question. Like, how can we reach you? She done jumped all into, I don't even gotta ask the question anymore.
It's
no,
pathetic.
but I do want you to tell them about your group on Facebook.
Absolutely. So the Life as You program group, it's for women, and it's a space, it's a safe space, is a place where you can be authentically you. You can ask a question, and you're going to receive some awesome information. Look, life is about like everything. So from finances to spiritual to your health, your body, sex, you name it, everything happens in this group. We're going to ask the questions. From this group, is birth, because it comes out next month. My first book, yes. And I thank everybody in the group for their input and their interaction. And so the book is called We Grown, A Woman's Guide to Sexual Liberation, because yes, I said live life and live it more fervently. Yeah, right. And so in every single way, this is what we do in the Life as You program group. And so if you are a lady, find it, and I will go ahead and let you enter.
It's a great group, y'all. I was excited. I remember when I joined, and just again, a nice, safe place. I need to read your book. I'm really excited about this thing. I was just telling my friends I need to write a book under an alias.
Right. Yeah, Coach CeCe, I be the bold one. I
should write a book under an alias talking about what I didn't tell you that night. That's
right.
I have to be an alias because they're gonna put me up under the altar, right?
What? Do you need to regurgitate some things? Maybe.
I'm like, there's so and so. My friend was like, yo, you're crazy. I said, that's why I say it under alias, because
right. Amen.
That's the church saying, amen. Amen. I can't wait to read your book.
Absolutely.
Group, y'all. So any ladies watching, join the group, because then you'll understand why I'm laughing and why I'm excited and all the information and the different things that we talk about. And I will not disclose it. I'm not going to give you a tidbit. Coach CeCe already did, but I ain't even going to do all that because she already did, number one. Number two, you got to join the group.
Absolutely. Period.
I'm calling Dr. Piss. I'm like, why you? Anyway. All right. So listen, y'all. I'm really excited. I'm so excited. I think that we've heard so much. Again, I'm just like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm happy overwhelmed though. Because sometimes the podcast and you're like, huh. And then sometimes you're like joyous overwhelmed, like just a burst of new freedom that you found. So Coach CeCe, I'm going to ask, is there any other thing that you want to say before we close out on today? Again, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I want to thank you for being my support. I know we don't talk all the time, and I always say that to people. I have friends that I can call and we talk every day. And then I have friends that we talk every couple of months. And then I have people like you, I could call you or I could message you and I could just be like, hey, da 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 da. And that's kind of how our conversations go. It's no love lost, is whatever. And that's what I appreciate. My pastor said Sunday that friendships now are being built upon advantage, what somebody could do for you. But a true friendship is to embrace a person for who they are and to appreciate for who they are, right? And so I always tell you, like, I appreciate you. I don't know if I told you recently. I don't even know if I told you, but I so appreciate you because it's never been one time that I haven't called you or that I've messaged you that you haven't responded and just been about that life and been positive from that time we first talked. And it's always been consistent and I appreciate that. always say that, we're the offspring of Dr. Pitts. And so you will be that millionaire because we are connected
Absolutely.
to greatness. Yes.
Period. You'll hear me say that a lot. Well, yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to share the space with you, your space. You're doing an amazing job. I really, really just love it. I'm so excited as well. I can't even blame it on this coffee. I'm just excited because you're glowing, you're energetic, and I know that you are just have a heart for people and you're doing God's work. So I really, really appreciate all that you're doing, and I'm so happy that I could be of service to you. So call me anytime and I'll be sure to answer the call. What I want to leave with the people is what I call the WWW Slam. And it's in the beginning, there's a word, right? We hear a word, there's a word. And then from that word, there's a want, right? A desire. But in order to get that desire, in order to get those wants, you have to do the work. So ladies and gentlemen, Coach CeCe is here and available to help you do your work with that WWW Slam. So let's go.
I don't know why I did that. I just thought about a basketball like swoosh. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And please make sure you tune in again on next week at Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We will be back on Facebook, YouTube, and all the other platforms sharing information as our speakers come on and amplify their voice one story at a time. So you guys, you already know, I love to close this podcast with the same quote every single week because it's always relevant to every single topic that we talk about. And the quote is that healing does not mean that the trauma never existed. It means that the trauma no longer controls your life. Thank you again for tuning in. I'll see you guys on next week. Take care.